Welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of the Put on Raiders podcast. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas. I'm podcasting off the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. I am with my partner, Ryan Holmes, out there, also out here in Southern California. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. It's good to have another game on the rise and a divisional game finally.
The divisional game for the Raiders this week, and it's Chiefs week, so we got to have somebody from the other side here. Don't run from the TVs, Raider Nation. We got to have a perspective here for the Raiders and the Chiefs. We have Steve Serta here on the podcast. Steve, can you give us a little background and give us your Twitter handle as well? Because you don't only do the Chiefs, you talk a lot of stuff about the NFL as a whole.
Yeah, so I work at SB Nation. I am the kind of podcast manager, editor, whatever you want to call it, for Arrowhead Pride. So I do a lot of strictly Chiefs content, but I also do a lot of national NFL stuff for the SB Nation NFL show. So I like talking football. I talk about the entire league. It's pretty fun, and I have a good time doing all of it. So I really appreciate you guys having me. And my Twitter handle is just at Steven Serta, my name. That's where you can find me.
Cool. Let's just start off with the quarterback. Mahomes has been up and down this year. No matter how you slice it. I guess people, going back to the Super Bowl with the 3 safety looks, with the people rushing 4 and dropping everybody else back. Who is more responsible for this kind of offensive disarray? Is it Mahomes? Is it, Bieniemy? Is it Reed? Is it just a combination of both? What's really the reason why we're not seeing the high-flying Chiefs score a lot of points?
Can I blame the offensive line that they had in the Super Bowl? Because it seems like that's where it all went downhill, right? Yeah. No, I think the blame is on Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. I think they both deserve a little bit of it this year, where, Mahomes is still doing the stuff that he's always done. And that's, deep drop backs, really trying to get outside the pocket and make these dynamic plays down the football field. But defenses simply aren't allowing them to do that this season. And they know without Sammy Watkins and that secondary receiver option that they've had for so many years, it's just Tyreek Hill, it's just Travis Kelce, and then a lot of other guys that you don't really have to worry that much about. And so defenses are double teaming their stars and trying to force them into situations where the other guys got to step up. The other guys aren't always stepping up. Now, Patrick Mahomes has struggled. He's been off target. He's just not finding his rhythm. And I think part of that is because those big plays are so ingrained in his mental makeup of being an NFL quarterback that he can't find that rhythm. And so some of that's on him and his inability to adjust this season. But I think a lot of the blame is on Andy Reid, because Andy's still doing the same things that he's always done. It's just not working this season. And that's more on the head coach in my mind to kind of make those adjustments and say, okay, we got to come up with a different offensive game plan. I've mentioned multiple times the system that they kind of ran with Alex Smith, I think would do them a lot of good this season, which is kind of crazy that that's where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. But they don't run wide receiver screens as much anymore. They don't run the screens to the running backs that they used to utilize constantly with Alex Smith and find tons of success with. And I think they need to do more of that this season. And maybe that'll actually open up the passing game down the field. And then we'll start seeing this explosive offense again.
Of all the secondary wide receivers, whether it's Pringle, Hartman, or Robinson, was there any one of those 3 that you had more that you felt like, could really step in and kind of take the pressure off of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce the most? And who's probably the most disappointing of that group?
I think it has to be McCole Hardman. We're talking about a 2nd-round pick who just hasn't really taken a step forward. And this is a guy who was drafted in the same vicinity of guys like A.J. Brown, Michael Pittman, DK Metcalf. We're talking about star caliber wide receivers. And this is the one that the Chiefs decided to pick in that situation. And they actually traded up to go get him. And he's just not panned out. He's just simply not a well-rounded wide receiver. He is really, really fast. He can run straight downfield and beat defenders, but he's got a huge problem dropping passes, and he just hasn't developed into an all-around playmaker. So I think he's got to be the biggest disappointment. Like Demarcus Robinson, Byron Pringle, they brought in Josh Gordon because they weren't getting what they wanted from McCole Hardman, and this was the first season he's legitimately getting a lot more snaps and like taking that step into being more a significant part of the offense. And he just hasn't shown up. You know, Josh Gordon, we'll see. I don't know what he has left in the tank because they haven't really been utilizing him. And then Demarcus Robinson and Byron Pringle are okay players, but they're just, you know, depth guys. They're not guys you can expect that much from on a weekly basis.
Well, I mean, we do understand about taking the wrong wide receiver in the draft. At silver and black, if you will. The struggles, you know, from Mahomes here, like people are rushing for and dropping everybody back, and you know, kind of making sure Tyreek Hill doesn't beat him. This week, playing the Raiders, Gus Bradley, is he going to be patient enough to just take what Gus Bradley gives him, and then maybe trying to do something in the red zone to get some points that way? Because I mean, the way this defense is set up, the Raiders have, you know, people when Crosby and Yannick Ngakoue said, hey, this could be the best pass rush in the league, people kind of laughed at it. But now when you look at what they're doing this year, I mean, they're leading the league in pressures and they're always in the backfield. You know, can he get the ball out quick and be patient against this Raider defense? Because if he holds it, there could be a lot of sacks coming his way for Mahomes and Andy Reid in this offense.
Yeah, so I think he can, and yeah, I think he's gonna have to. Because yeah, you're right. The Raiders' pass rush has been fantastic this season, and I think a lot of people thought that Yannick Ngakoue was kind of over the hill, and he's been a huge signing for you guys. And Max Crosby's taken a huge step this year, and so they're gonna give the Chiefs problems, and the Chiefs might be on their third string right tackle this weekend because Lucas Niang and Mike Remmers, who are both guys who have started at different points at the right tackle position for the Chiefs this week or this season, aren't practicing this week. And Mike Remmers has missed a couple of games already. So they might be down to Andrew Wiley at that position, which makes me nervous the way that pass rush has been playing for the Raiders. That it's going to have to be that, you know, and I think they've done a better job of it the last 2 weeks where they've opened the game really strong and kind of been more methodical, moving the football down the field and putting together these like 11 to 15 play drives to try to score to open the game. The problem is that after those opening scripted drives by Andy Reid, they've looked out of whack and they've looked disorganized in kind of the way that they've looked all season. So they're going to have to do that, I think, throughout the entire game. I think they're going to try to lean on the run game. They've been doing that a little bit more. They're not going to have Clyde in all likelihood. He did return to practice this week for the Chiefs, but they're making it sound like he's probably still a couple weeks away. He hasn't been activated to the 53-man roster yet. And then, you know, Darrell Williams and Derek Gore is kind of the guys that they've been using, and they've been productive, but it's still the Chiefs and they still want to pass. So it's, you know, they're not looking to rush the ball 30 times a game or something like that. And I don't think they're going to do that this weekend, but yeah, I think they have to design some stuff to get the ball out of his hands quickly this weekend. Cause I agree with you guys. I think your pass rush is going to give them some issues.
The running game here, you know, the Raiders have in this defense, they want to rush the passer. They want to get a lead and rush the passer. So they're going to give some runs, some running lanes. They gave a Booker had a big game last week for the Giants against the Raiders. What are your thoughts about, you know, the running the football here? I mean, you mentioned not 30 times, but I mean, who would be the running back that the Raiders would have to be worried about, or is it just by committee in Kansas City?
It's going to be Darrell. He's really been their lead back, Darrell Williams, with Clyde being down, but they have gotten Derek Gore into the mix more lately, and he's actually looked really good in the attempts that he's had. He's just not getting that many. But Darrell Williams is going to be their lead back. They've made it clear that they like him and that he's reliable, and he's the guy that they can count on in the backfield for, you know, pass blocking and rushing and stuff like that. So Derek Gore is going to be in the mix. They utilized Jerick McKinnon a little bit more last week, but he's kind of been an afterthought. I think when they signed Jerick McKinnon, we really thought, oh, Andy's going to really utilize this guy because he could be a really productive pass catching back, and they just simply haven't done it. So I'd be shocked if Jerick McKinnon had a huge role in this game because he just hasn't at any point in this season. But yeah, I think it's Darrell with a little bit of Derek Gore sprinkled in, and then you probably don't need to worry much about Jerick McKinnon. Before
I turn you over to Ryan Holmes, who's going to kind of go over a little bit of the defense, give me two things. One of your most optimistic things going into this game for the Chiefs offense, and one of the things you're really worried about going into this game with the Chiefs offense.
I mean, my optimism would be that like they turned the corner and their offense finally looks like the Chiefs offense that we're used to. You know, this rivalry last year, both games were awesome. They were both high scoring games back and forth the entire time. And they were really entertaining football games. So like if we got that we had last year in both these matchups, I'd be thrilled. Like even if the Chiefs lost this game, if they put up 35 points, I'm just going to be excited over the way that they've looked the last 2 weeks against the Giants. And, you know, so that's how bad the offense has been. And that's how much it's struggled. You know, like they put up 13 points against the Packers, and that's just not something we're used to with this Kansas City Chiefs team. So if they can put up points in any way, I'm going to be excited about the offense turning a corner. And I already mentioned the right tackle spot. I'm worried about it because, you know, Chiefs fans kind of have nightmares about that Super Bowl and the way they just got dominated by that Bucs front. And I mentioned it off the top because I think that's where all of this started going bad. Like it's, you know, Patrick Mahomes is pressing too much is a really popular thing. And there's some truth to that. But I think all of that started in the Super Bowl when his protection was so bad. He felt like he had to do way too much just to even get a pass off in that game. And we've seen it carry over to this season. So if they're down Andrew Wiley at right tackle headed into this game with the way the Raiders pass rush has been this season, that's something that really worries me.
Right?
Yeah, definitely, Stephen. I think to add to that, we saw a little bit last week of Gus Bradley put Ngakoue and Crosby on the same side. And I really think this is the week we could see them have both of those guys rush off the offensive right side down to that third string tackle. And I envision a package where we see maybe Carl Nassib on the field with both those guys, just get pass rushers going on third and long. But I want to talk more about the Chiefs defense. Quick dive through here. You know, they're in the bottom third in pretty much every category, but the one that sticks out the most to me, and I was surprised when I saw this, they are dead last in sacks per game in the NFL. And when you have Frank Clark and you have Chris Jones, tell us how that happens. Like what's going on with the Chiefs pass rush?
So it's been better the last 2 games, right? But to start the season, this defense looked like it was going to be the worst defense in NFL history, like by a landslide. Like they were getting absolutely dominated in every facet of the game. And they've got a lot of money in that defensive line, and the defensive line was not generating pressure at all to start the season. Part of that is because they chose not to put a lot of money into adding another edge rusher. They thought we've got some young guys who we like and who we think that, you know, with a healthy Frank, healthy Chris, we can just kind of plug and play and have a rotation there. And it didn't really work out to start the season. But then, you know, Frank Clark injured his hamstring early in training camp, and then he came back pretty quick to start the season. Then he injured his other hamstring. And so he has been honest about it, saying like, you know, I had to spend months not working out my lower body, and I just felt like I couldn't generate the power that I'm used to generating when I'm trying to rush a quarterback. He has looked good the last 2 games. He has had pressures, he's had sacks, and he's looking a little bit more like what we're used to him looking like. And I think he's finally starting to get healthier. So that was a big issue. And then them not putting the resources into that edge position, they were like, well, we'll just put Chris Jones on the outside and see how that works out. And we're talking about a guy who has been dominant as an interior pass rusher, and they tried to move him to the edge. And Chris Jones is an incredible player, but he's just simply not athletic enough to really turn the corner as an edge rusher. And we saw that early on. Then he suffered a wrist injury where he actually tore a ligament in his wrist that had him sidelined for a couple of weeks. He said that it's not healed. He's not going to be 100% for the rest of the season, but he's starting to feel more normal. And since they added Melvin Ingram, thankfully, in that trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they shipped a 6th-round pick to Melvin Ingram, who his first game against the Green Bay Packers, Ingram immediately had an impact, and Chris Jones was inside way more instead of playing on the outside. And then Chris Jones was immediately looking like, oh, Chris Jones is looking like his game-wrecking self from the interior again. So the pass rush has been bad, but it's been better the last 2 games. And I think Melvin Ingram is going to be huge for the Chiefs moving forward. So I think that is going to improve the pass rush a lot.
Yeah, I think this game comes down to the trenches, and I see a situation where Chris Jones, they're going to line him up across from Alex Leatherwood or over the head of Andre James, the 2 weak links right now in the Raiders offensive line, and then move Clark over to the offensive right side and rush him against Brandon Parker and kind of take advantage of that right side. But then you have Ingram on the other side now too. Clark against Miller. Raider fans still have nightmares of that Seahawks game in London where Frank Clark just absolutely abused Colton Miller. But Miller's come a long way. He's by far their best pass blocker. But then getting into scheme, if we get away from the pass rush, I saw something yesterday where over the last month, the Chiefs are basically a cover 2 team. They're playing cover 2 at like 32 or 33% of the time. Is this a zone defense? Because I turned on the Packers game and it was like cover 0 all over the place. What do you expect them to do defensively to slow down this Raiders team?
I wouldn't say that they're like strictly a cover 2 defense, but I think that they've made some adjustments there. And I think part of that is that they got Willie Gay Jr. back, who's their young 2nd-year linebacker, who is the most athletic linebacker that they've had since Derek Johnson, and he can legitimately cover people. And so I think that's helped them out a lot. And then Charvarius Ward was banged up to start the year. He's getting healthier now. L'Jarius Sneed's taken a step. And then Spags finally started using Rashad Fenton, who is like their most underrated corner. They were insisting to start the year on using Mike Hughes and DeAndre Baker, and they were both just terrible and not making an impact at all. And then Rashad Fenton came in, and he's been getting a ton of snaps now, and he's really been solid for them. He's been a really good piece in that secondary. And then, Tyrann Mathieu is going to be able to play in the box. He's going to be able to man up, and they move him around all over the place, and he's kind of a do-it-all safety for them. And then they finally started playing Juan Thornhill more than Daniel Sorensen. And Juan Thornhill is much more athletic. He's much faster. He's a much better coverage guy than Daniel Sorensen. And so I think all of that has kind of helped evolve the defense a little bit, and to where they're playing more zone and doing stuff like that. But I think their secondary has legitimately taken big strides. Like I would argue that that's been the biggest improvement over the last couple of games. Like L'Jarius Sneed and Charvarius Ward did a fantastic job just kind of rotating Davante Adams last week. And I understand it was Jordan Love and not Aaron Rodgers, but Davante Adams is still a very special player. So like anytime you can get wins against Davante Adams, I'll take that for the Chiefs defense.
Yeah, as a Raiders fan, I get excited. I look at these numbers of how bad they are defensively, and then I go, oh, wait, they got to play Jordan Love, who couldn't do anything, and Daniel Jones the week before, who we just saw, who threw for 110 yards against the Raiders. So these numbers might be even worse over the first 4 weeks than over the last 2 weeks. So is it more of a mirage, or is it an improvement? It sounds like they're getting better and getting healthier. That's the main thing.
Yeah, I think they're getting better, but I'm still not sold that it isn't a mirage. Like I still think you could put up points against this defense. They just might not be the worst defense ever, if that means anything.
Well, we saw Paul Gunther for 4 years, so we know a lot about worst defense ever. But I want to talk about Sorensen. To me, he's the weak link in the defense. He's still on the field. The Raiders are going to target him whenever he's out there. Is he playing mostly in like dime packages or 3 safeties, or how often is he on the field?
So his snap count has gone down over the last several weeks, and really, I think since the Bills game was where Josh Allen just absolutely torched him. He's still playing a lot, in dime packages and 3 safety and stuff like that. And I wish they would cut him, to be totally honest. He might be the worst defender in football. Daniel Sorensen is an undrafted player who's had a very nice career for himself here in Kansas City, made a decent amount of money, won a Super Bowl, and has had impact plays over the years, and kind of been the right guy at the right time with a, tip ball interception or something like that. And so he's done some nice things, but he just doesn't have it anymore. And part of it is Steve Spagnuolo is just kind of hard-headed and insists on putting him on the football field. And his snaps have gone down, but I think his snap should be 0. Because we even saw last week with Jordan Love, it's when 49's on the field, you attack him because you can complete against him on, at almost 100% clip. And Jordan Love had a couple of nice throws where he completed passes on Daniel Sorenson, because as soon as he stepped on the football field, they said, okay, we're looking at 49. And that's what every offense has done this season, is when 49's on the field, that's the guy we're throwing at. And they've had a lot of success doing it. So I think the Chiefs are probably still going to use him. His role has diminished quite a bit since the start of the season. At the start of the season, he was playing 100% of the defensive snaps. He's not doing anything close to that now. But yeah, if it were up to me, he would play 0% of the snaps on Sunday, but he's likely going to be out there in some case.
Yeah, I expect the Raiders to run the football in this game. The running game has gotten clicking the last 2 weeks. Josh Jacobs looked the best he's looked all season. Kenyon Drake's had a really good 2 weeks. So talk to me about the linebackers on the Chiefs. Are these guys going to be able to hold up in the run game and then also be able to cover the Darren Wallers, the Kenyon Drakes, maybe Renfro out of the slot? It seems like that's where an advantage the Raiders can take because these guys are young.
Yeah. So Nick Bolton has really come a long way since the start of the season. He was a guy that was not supposed to start out of the gate, but Willie Gay Jr. got hurt in the preseason and had to go on IR for a while, and he missed several games to start the year. So Nick Bolton all of a sudden got thrust in the starting lineup as a rookie and looked really rough to start the year. But he's taken huge steps over the last month or so. He's looked a lot better. And then Anthony Hitchens went down and he stepped into his role at the Mike linebacker and looked like a stud. Like, Nick Bolton is a run stuffing linebacker. That's where he belongs. Do not put him in coverage because that's just not his game. He's a guy that needs to be around the line of scrimmage making plays. And they've been doing that more. And they had Anthony Hitchens back last week. And Anthony Hitchens, not a great linebacker, but the Chiefs love him. Again, I think it's another like Steve Spagnuolo stubborn thing where we love Hitch. Hitch is our guy. He's our defensive leader. We know he's going to get them right when he's on the field. But Anthony Hitchens just simply isn't a high impact player, but he's going to be on the field a lot. But I am excited about the play of the young linebackers, and I'm really excited about the play of Willie Gay Jr. I would think that the Chiefs are probably going to try to cover Waller with Tyrann Mathieu a little bit, but I think Willie Gay Jr. could see some of that as well. And he is an athletic linebacker, but, Darren Waller is a stud. So, I don't trust any linebacker in the NFL to cover Darren Waller one-on-one. But Willie Gay Jr. is a good pass coverage linebacker who's got the athleticism to go sideline to sideline. So that's their best matchup there. Now, they're also going to put Ben Neiman in certain situations. And Ben Neiman is another one of those Chiefs defenders who winds up getting caught in coverage a lot, is not good at covering opposing offensive players in any way, and gives up a lot of yards when he winds up being in coverage. And it's another guy that they insist on putting out there in certain situations, but he's been getting less snaps now that Willie Gay is back. So I wouldn't count on him having a huge role, but he's probably going to be in the game at some point. And that's another player like Daniel Sorenson. When Ben Neiman's on the field, you target Ben Neiman.
Definitely. And one last question. This is non-defense related, but what percentage chance do you think the Chiefs sign Odell Beckham Jr.?
I don't know. Right now, I would honestly say if it were totally up to me, I would like to see him go to Kansas City or Green Bay, just because, I'm a fan of football and I'm a fan of scoring and excellence. And I think that Odell Beckham could make a huge impact for the Kansas City Chiefs if he were to sign here. And I think he could make a huge impact for the Green Bay Packers. I know there's some other teams in the mix. Those are the two teams that I want to see him sign with. So I don't know. Right now, I'd say it's like a 15% chance because the Chiefs can't offer him more money really than anybody else. But it's the Packers, Saints, and Chiefs all have very little cap space. So really all they can offer is a veteran minimum type of deal. And if he wants, an opportunity to win, that's basically what they're selling. a team like the Patriots, who are supposedly heavily in the mix, like they've got more money and they could offer him more if that's what he wants. So hopefully he wants to win, and hopefully he's interested in playing with Patrick Mahomes, because that's all I'm hoping for right now. I'd love to see Odell as a Kansas City Chief.
Yeah,
it's a weird situation with him that he's been free. He's known he's going to be free. And the fact he didn't sign yesterday leads me to believe that, one, the market's not what he thought it was, or the contract's not there. And then the league views him differently than he views himself. And to me, he should have picked the team yesterday, had it lined up, got to practice, started learning the playbook. And yeah, I'm still waiting for Jennifer Love Hewitt to return my phone calls. I moved on a long time ago, but it sounds like Odell's just waiting. He thinks someone's going to get hurt this week. And I don't know, but I don't know what he's doing. But Dwayne, what are your thoughts on it?
Content-wise, I'm totally cool with him waiting till Monday, because that means we can ride the Odell wave a little bit longer here.
Yeah, of course. Well, I mean, for that story, really, it's all about him just going to a contender for a minimum salary, balling out until the playoffs, and then maybe somebody getting him a new contract next year. And that's the way to go for it. I mean, if you keep waiting around, I'm not sure that's the best part of it. It's funny you talk about Sorenson. I remember, our Gunther used to talk about Reggie Nelson the same way. Just keep putting him out there. He'd get torched and still, it's amazing how NFL coaches will just be so stubborn in situations when they know that, when they see failure on the field. Listen, Stephen, thank you for joining us here on the Put On Raiders podcast. Chiefs Raiders is always fun, especially when the teams are fighting for a division championship here. I mean, every team in the AFC West has a winning record, so we'll see what happens this weekend in Las Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you guys having me. And like I said, I hope this game looks like the games that they had last season, where they both put up a lot of points and it's just an entertaining football game.
Yes, I don't know if my heart could take another one of those, especially the game in Vegas. That was a great game. The game in Vegas was even better than the game in Kansas City. All right. See you. Take care, man.